Hi, what's going on guys? It's Almond. Welcome back to another Wizard101 video. In today's video, we're going to be looking at some more teasers coming to Test Realm for Wizard101. So many teasers back to back to back. We should be even getting more teasers later, and I will definitely react to them. But these set of teasers, I have gone from Core and Boar. They recently just posted their video, so definitely if you haven't, go check them out. This is my first time watching them as well, and honestly, they seem like a funny bunch of guys. So definitely go watch them, go watch their video, and see what their thought process is on these spells. And I did message them, and luckily they were able to give me the images so I can post them for this video. But definitely go watch their video if you haven't, because they were given these set of teasers for their video. So let's talk about the spells, give you guys my thoughts and opinions, of course. And yeah, definitely leave a like, subscribe, all type of stuff. And let's look at the spells, shall we? So the main spell that I want to go over first, well, specifically for Storm, is that Queen Calypso did get changed, right? So Queen Calypso did get changed. So currently right now in game, the top path is a 30 trap and decent amount of damage, of course, same pip cost, same everything else. And then the bottom path is a minus 80 infection. It's a pretty high infection. When I did do low level PvP for scaling down on my Storm, I did use Queen Calypso a lot, and even back in the day when you can do cosplaying as a death, I was using Queen Calypso pretty often in low level PvP because of the 80 minus 80% on it. It was just so good. Now in the recent change, I'll put it on screen, is what they did was instead of a minus 80 now, you get two negative 55 infections. So treat it how you will. I guess it's kind of like opinion based on what you prefer. Personally, I prefer the minus 80 just because it's just one, right? And if someone wants to cleanse it off, they have to do a lot more work because it's only one. Now that it's two, I feel like someone has to be able to cleanse off two, and they're kind of getting more value with it, especially with like new spells coming around the corner. I don't know. It's like, it depends on your preference. I personally still I will be missing the minus 80 personally. But I will say though that the newer one does have a better damage stat on it. You do get 560 damage instead of a range. Currently on tier 5, it's 500 to 560, while on the newer one, the bottom path is just a straight damage number. So no more like trying to figure out like between that number damage or that number range. So I do like that portion of the spell, and it's pretty nice. And even in like just regular combat, I can probably even see myself using the bottom path just for the damage if I do need to use it for some specific reason. But overall, still good. You guys take it however you like, and honestly, this is a good and bad change depending on how you look at it. So there's some mixed reviews about Queen Calypso. Now, the next spell that's going to get changed for Storm is Triton. I believe when they showed the teasers is that the top path looked exactly the same, but the path that did get changed was the bottom path. Now, what it seems like is they're only given one card, and in that card, it shows Storm's Triton, the bottom path is being changed. It's no longer chromatic. So if you are using this like on an ice or like a different school, death, whatever, you can't just be tossing this out and getting yourself some death blades for clearing haunts. Now it's going to be only storm blades, so it's kind of unique. What I would have to assume is whenever they introduce the whole fusion stuff with spells, who knows if we'll get like a different version of Triton just for infusing it, and it'll be like a different pip cost and people will be able to do something with it. Who knows? But right now, bottom path Triton is just going to be for storm only. Like you can still use it on other schools, of course, but like the blade, you're only going to be getting storm. And I don't know what tier this is specifically. From what it looks like in the image, it looks like a tier 4 due to the fact is on the newer spell, it has a ban of 45, and in game the 45 ban is on tier 4. So I would have to assume this is tier 4 and not tier 5, but who knows if they change the bottom path completely. But just looking at the image, it looks like tier 4 Triton. So I think realistically it didn't change the damage, they just changed the bottom portion of it, so it gives you a storm blade. So that's interesting to see. It's not going to affect me for advanced combat, at least right now. I guess if you were using some Triton for like a different school in advanced combat, but personally in any of the strats I have done recently, I haven't used Triton like on a different school. So it's mainly affecting PvP players as a whole. Next spells that I want to go over are on death. So death is getting some changes as well. So if we go to our death and look at infection is getting changed. Currently in game, it's a minus 50%, but the newer card of this is going to be minus 65%. So that's another 15% increase. and we'll just have to see how big of a change this makes. Honestly, I'm very intrigued. It's just kind of like a lot of questions, because with the whole thing of spell fusion, I'm kind of intrigued what spells are going to look like. So regardless though, this is a buff for death, and you can train infection on other schools too. So if you want to for some reason carry infection on other schools, it'll be good. But as a whole, the -65 is a good take. You can be used in just regular combat too. I know the fight in, I believe there's like this one fight where you have to like make sure they don't heal as much. So honestly, this -65 is very good just for that combat. Advanced content, there hasn't been a reason for me to use a infection unless I'm trying to set up something, like for example a infection gambit, or not infection, a negative charm gambit, and I need an extra negative charm, then I would just toss on infection. So it doesn't affect me too much with the increased stat, but still it's a good change no matter what. I don't think people are going to be complaining about infection. But another thing that's going to be changed alongside infection is trifold, or threefold fever, however you want to call it. I've always just called it trifold, but threefold fever is getting changed, and that's going to be -65% as well. So that's quite interesting to see. But with all these removals, it'll be interesting to see how people play around it. But it's still, like I said, doesn't affect me too much for advanced content when it comes to PvE stuff, because yeah, there hasn't been a fight specifically where it's like I need threefold to slow down a healing process. At least not to my knowledge, right? Like, not that I remember on top of my head at least, but it's still good regardless. Positive change all around. And from their video, it seemed like, I'm not too sure, but it seemed like if we go over to, I believe it is Dr. Vaughn, apparently in the video they were saying is this is going to be changed to -65%. It's very plausible that can happen, and I can see it happening. But if it does, I mean, still good value on Dr. Vaughn, and it's going to be increased to -65 if that's the case. So we'll just have to look and see in Dr. Vaughn whenever it does come to test round, and look at all these spells, because I kid you not, I'm going to be having like, I have to clear out my schedule, and just there's going to be so many videos to upload. It's going to be insane. You guys are going to see like double, triple, maybe quadruple uploads on certain days. So be on the lookout for all that where it comes to like spell testing. So that's going to be interesting to see. But that's all the death spells at the moment. And let's move on to the next set of spells. The next spell that's getting changed is Glimpse of Infinity. Now, I didn't think this would happen, but it kind of makes sense over time that this was going to happen, and it's getting changed for the better, I'd say. So additionally, they're adding a new tier to the Nova spells, from what it seems like, because if they added it to Glimpse, I would assume that they added to all of them. And for me personally, I don't have an issue with the spellaments. I have an extra 800. Now, of course, if you don't have enough spellaments, I highly recommend you go farming them. But I would wait till the new area comes out, because who knows if that will contain those spellaments. Of course, with Walrus spellaments and Nova spellaments, it's very plausible. But honestly, if you want to just be ahead of the game, you can you can go farm your spellaments to get yourself a tier 5 of these spells. But they're just adding a new tier. From what it seems like is they're not going to be changing anything on the pip cost. The accuracy is going to be remain the same, and the spell is going to be remain the same. Realistically, all they're doing is adding a new tier that gives more damage and just essentially an ascension to the card. And it does increase from tier 4 to tier 5. You get 20 extra damage, which is really good to see as a whole. And I used to use Glimpse a lot in PvE farming stuff, but ever since they changed it to 2 separate dots, like it's just split in half, like it'll still equal this damage, but it's just split in half, I stopped using it. I'm hoping one day we can get a Glimpse that's just a regular dot. I don't know if that's going to ever happen, but I'm not going to get my hopes up too much, because it was so good for farming. In certain situations, it would be better than Headcount, at least for me. So hopefully one day, just if it's possible, give me a Glimpse path that's just 1 dot only and ban it or something, so I can use it in like regular combat farming. It would be so nice. But till then, we're just gonna have to use Headcount, even though it's banned, but we can still use it in farming methods. So there's that. But it's nice that all the Nova spells are getting a tier 5. If I would have to go based upon the assumption that Glimpse is getting a tier 5, we would have to assume all the other ones are getting tier 5s. And it doesn't seem like they're getting changes. It's just extra damage, just like how spell rating usually is. So that's it for the fire spells, at least, and the Nova spells at least covered. So we'll move on to the last spell, last group of spells that I do want to talk about. Now Myth is getting a spell changed and a new tier to one of its spells. So if we want to go over to the spells real quick and we go to Myth, specifically it's Troll that's getting changed. Now currently in the game is Troll, what it does damage, and then it gambits a shield. So if you have a shield on you, it takes away the shield, and in return it detonates the dot on the opponent, and it does plus 45%. I have liked Troll. It's so good for just doing advanced combat stuff that just has a single dot and you can just detonate it. Most notably, a lot of people use Troll whenever you're using stone. If you have a bunch of infections or like negative charms, etc., you would use stone to get rid of all those negative charms, hit, and then on top of that it will put a deferred dot on the enemy. And then what you would do is you would use Troll to detonate it to do 45% extra damage. Now, I have liked this version of Troll, I always will be, but it's getting changed. Now, depending on how you like it, you know, it just really comes down to your opinion. I honestly, I understand the way the game is going, so I understand why they did it this way, but essentially it's always going to detonate a dot now. So it's going to be the same damage and everything like that, but the main thing is, now instead of doing just only a gambit, it's going to be detonating one dot, and then on top of that it's going to be gambiting a shield to detonate another dot. Now depending on how you look at it, it will be good, but whenever you're trying to have one dot on the enemy, it won't be as viable anymore. Like, it's still a hit and detonate, but it's just another fire cat in my opinion. So like, if I want to not use people switching between them for advanced combat for PvE, because you know, you could just use a fire cat to detonate if you're going for a different dot that's not a fire spell. Like, if I have traps stacked on an enemy and I have a dot on them, and if I don't want to waste those fire traps, I can always just use the troll spell, right, the newer one, because it's literally just that with the detonate. And vice versa, if I have a dot of a different school with different school traps, and if I don't want to use, like for example, troll, I can just use fire cat as well. So you have like a little bit of options when it comes to that. So it's good for that, I'd say, but I'll still be missing the, you know, the 45% on the detonate. But still, it's still good though. There's nothing bad about it. It just accelerates it, so it just detonates it. It's not an increase on the damage or anything like that. So I'm not too sure how I feel about this, but I can understand why they do this, because of, for example, like if I want to detonate, we can just use glimpse, for example, like we were talking about earlier. Like if you want to detonate glimpse has 2 dots, so you can just use like troll and detonate both of the dots to do something with it, right? So that is very plausible as well. So that's happening. Troll's getting changed for the better or the worse, depending on how you look at it. And then lastly, what's getting changed is if we go to our mid spells and we go to Drw Bear. Now, I don't think they covered this in the video specifically about Drw Bear. They're very focused on tier 4. Tier 4 is getting an addition to this. So we'll have, of course, we have 430, 440, 450, and they were asking about this being 460, because currently the image that's being shown is that this is going to be a 455. But what it seemed like they didn't cover is, which is like, in my opinion, a good thing that you should cover, is the bottom portion is no longer a myth dot now. It's now a fire dot. So that's something I feel like is a very good clarification to make upon, because it's very important that that is now a fire dot now, because Drw Bear was being used a lot in PvP, and it's still good. Like, people were using this as well in the raids, of course, because it just, you know, even if you can't clear anything, it's still good just for the damage on top of the Polaris raid. So it's a very good spell for that portion. But for PvP players, now you do have to be wary that this is now a fire dot. It's still going to do the exact same damage, of course. We're still going to have the increased damage for tier 4, and then probably a year from now we'll have tier 5. So that's good to see. But I do want to make that huge clarification that now pay attention to the dot. It's no longer myth, it is now fire. So we'll have to see when it comes to live realm and see how players react to it, or just even in test realm, and see what people can cook up with now Drw Bear being a fire dot with still having your myth damage as well. But still, it's good that we're getting tier 4. I would have to assume if Drw Bear is getting a tier 4, all the other spells are getting tier 4, and I don't know, there's still another set of teasers that's supposed to come out today, but I will try to cover them whenever I can. But just at the moment, we do know Drw Bear is getting a tier 4, and I kind of just have to make the assumption that all the other spells for Wallaroo are getting a tier 4. So if are you, definitely go farm some bosses if you haven't. Specifically, I'd say Wallaroo would be your better option because you can farm the Wallaroo spellements, and then alongside of that you can farm yourself some Notice spellements. But it's just up to you as a player. What would you like to do to farm your spellements? There's plenty of guides on the channel. You can kind of just do whatever you feel like. And yeah, so that is it for the video. Like I said, definitely go check out Cornbore. Their videos down below in the description. They were originally given these teasers, so definitely go show them support. And luckily they were able to send me the images so I can show them on screen in HD quality, so I don't have to like screen grab them. So thank you to them. I appreciate you guys, and like I said, definitely go check them out down below. But that is it for me. Hopefully you guys enjoyed my thoughts and opinions. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down below, or even in the Discord. And join the Discord, of course. I appreciate all the people that have been joining Discord, or even liking the videos, subscribing, all that type of stuff. But these are my takes on the new spells or like new changes. So that is it, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Peace out, guys.